Welcome to Monster Monday.
That's right. Horror of Dracula. It's time to start hammering away
Hammered.
at this insane list of movies that Hammer made.
Yeah.
For some reason, I wanted to say like Hammer Production Company or something, but nothing came out, so just Hammer.
Just the Hammer.
Yeah, the Hammer horror films. There's a lot. There's a lot of these, and there's a lot in these franchises as well. Not only just like in addition, like because there's all the like the Dracula, the Mummy, the Frankenstein's, but then there's other series too, like the Quatermass stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's like a whole mess of other just like standalone type stuff as well. But we're here to cover the Draculas. We'll see what happens from here. But starting with the horror of Dracula. Now, we had originally wanted to do the Universals.
Yes.
To start.
We did.
We watched Dracula.
Uh-huh.
We watched Frankenstein. We watched Bride of Frankenstein. We watched The Wolfman.
Yeah.
And I don't think we covered any of them. Did we? Maybe Dracula.
I thought we did Frankenstein.
We might have done Frankenstein too. We were gonna stay with those, but God damn, they're boring.
Yeah.
I can't watch them. I need to just push past. I need to watch. We just one a week is not impossible.
It's not.
Right?
It's not. They're short too.
They're super.
They're
short.
like an hour 30 max. Most of them are
30,
like
more like an hour and 10.
Yeah, but they do feel longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to watch. I did. I have seen the Phantom of the Opera, the Universal version.
Like 1925.
Yeah.
Something.
Which I think it's Universal. Yeah, it's silent. But I watched that when I was younger because I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera, and I liked that. But that's like, I was already into the Phantom of the Opera. So I do think if you have like a connection with those characters already, they probably are more exciting to watch. But we've talked about it before. Like we want to be familiar with this, the Hammer films and Universal films because it's horror history and they are important for people who are like us obsessed with horror to know about. So, but we decided Hammer films, we were going to do these instead because they're a little bit more modern and kind of ease our way back into older films. You're not a fan of older films typically. I do tend to like them. I went through a phase in my teenage years where I was like really into like Audrey Hepburn. So I watched like all of her films, and I would watch similar movies like hers in that era. But I mean, they're just so different than modern films. They're so different.
I went through a phase like that as well. I just didn't like it. Right? Like I was the film guy to like everybody, and I felt kind of like a fraud having not seen like Citizen Kane and Casablanca and Gone with the Wind and Breakfast at Tiffany's and Some Like It Hot, and I was like trying to knock out all the like major titles or all the like major titles from major actresses, actors, directors, right? I watched a lot of Hitchcock. I watched a lot of all that stuff. And there's some I liked, right? Like most of Hitchcock's stuff I enjoyed. Like Rope was great. That's one that almost no one talks about, but I think is like one of his more underappreciated films. But anyway, I know people are always like, they don't even talk about the movie until 77 minutes in. Probably a valid criticism, but welcome to Sinister Cinema. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
But now, for context here, I have seen every Hammer franchise film. I saw all the Draculas, all the Frankensteins, the Mummies, the Quatermass films. I've seen all of them. I went through a phase where I just knocked them all out in a row. So I watched it was like 20, 30 films, 25, 30 films. There's a lot because there's 9 Draculas and there's like 8 Frankensteins. There's like 3 Mummies and 3 Quatermasses. I think I watched a couple more as well. But anyway, so yeah, I have seen all these. Kaylee has not.
I have not.
I am super curious to go and watch Brides of Dracula because I really enjoyed that one, especially the ending shots. I'll be very curious on how that one lives up. So as far as Dracula goes, it's interesting. You said that about Phantom of the Opera, and you're like, "Oh, I love Phantom of the Opera," and so like I liked this. I kind of find it funny that it's like, Phantom of the Opera is supposed to be like a musical, but it's a silent film, so it's like what? Um, so it's weird because the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula, with Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder, Keanu Reeves, Anthony Hopkins. I love that film.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I have a freaking 4K copy of it. I'm a big fan of that one, and it's the exact same story that's being told here. That's being told in the 1930s one from Universal. So like, it's not that this story can't be done in an entertaining way that I like.
Yeah.
Right. It's just something about the classic feel that just is. It just doesn't connect with me and my tastes, what I want out of these kinds of movies. I don't find them. So horror movies either have to be like creepy,
yeah,
scary feeling. They have to have a playful camp that I find funny or endearing, or they have to have like loads of gore and nudity, right? Like that's basically my sensibilities when it comes to this stuff, right? Those are the things that I'm going to go in and look for. So like you got like a Hereditary or a Witch or something, Babadook or whatever. That's more the psychological, the creepy, the what's in the shadows and what is it in their mind, is it not? Session 9, that kind of stuff. That's that like psychological, like real creepy ass horror, right? Then you got the slasher movies, which is all the just the nudity and the gore, and that even could maybe fall into the camp of like cheese as well at times. So like I don't know, it's like if it doesn't have those things, I really just I don't connect with them as much as like when I watch a movie like this, which I liked, fine. I do get it. Like when I watch it, I just don't connect with it. Right. So like I get the appeal while watching it. Like there's this like gothic feel to it and whatever, especially with the original 30s version.
Oh, definitely.
And like I get it. I see it. It's not like, I'm not incapable of getting it. It just I don't connect with it. I do love Peter Cushing and I do love Christopher Lee and I like seeing them and I think that it's cool to see them. I like these movies as they progress because they get ridiculous. And I think that this is probably, even though this is the highest rated one and the one that people mostly like, this one's just too familiar because I've seen this story so many times. The Jonathan Harker going to Dracula's castle, the brides, Van Helsing shows up, he has to convince them, blah blah blah. So it's just it's for me it's like this is the most boring one. Because there's nothing new, nothing unique. It's just been done. I know at this time it hadn't been done a ton, but now watching it, having seen Dracula like reiterated like 40 fucking times now, it's like I want to get to the later ones where they're doing like kung fu and shit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I liked this one fine. I do think that Christopher Lee as Dracula, I like the look of him quite a bit. Like his eyes are really freaky in this. And we'll get there, but the ending is pretty cool as far as like the effects go and everything. And as you said, like Peter Cushing, like he's great. But I do also think that like I was really noticing when we were watching this, I think, and I like vampires a lot. I'm a vampire fan for sure. But I think the story of Dracula, although it is a classic and it is timeless in some ways, in other ways, I do think it's become quite dated because I think that part of the horror of Dracula is kind of reliant on like xenophobia in a way. Like it's a little bit like, the person from another country coming over and stealing your women. Like it has that kind of a vibe to it that I think people probably would have connected to during the time because it's like, we weren't as like connected internationally as we are now, where it's like you're familiar with a lot of different cultures. Not that you see a lot of Dracula like as a, you know, as an outsider, like we don't really like see him doing weird things or whatever. Like he's just kind of like there in the beginning and then he shows up a little bit in the middle and then he's like there at the end. But I just was thinking that throughout this film, and I also think that this is a great example of a film where the women are like literally just objects in this. Like none of them have any kind of personality or like real not reaction but like autonomy in the film. Like they exist purely for Dracula to come in and try and turn them into his bride. And I like what I was telling you, like we were kind of talking about, like joking how, you know, this is like she's sort of like cheating on her husband, I guess you could say, in a way. Like she's, because she like knows Dracula's coming, but she's also afraid of him. But it's like the whole idea of like vampirism is that there is like pleasure for the person who's getting like drained of life, like it's like orgasmic. And we were kind of joking about how like women like orgasms and stuff, then it wasn't like the focus at all in a relationship. So I think that it could be like the story of Dracula could be shaped in terms of like women trying to seek pleasure, but I don't feel like that's the case with, you know what I mean? Like they're like, it's taboo and they're not supposed to, but like they want to feel good.
But that could also be
but it could also
part
be
of the fear from the men.
Right.
That a man is coming in and pleasuring his wife where he can't.
Yeah.
So it's about inadequacy.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's really what this one is going for. I just kind of feel that it's a bit superficial in terms of like the dynamic between all of the men and the women involved. And just, you know, obviously the fact alone that they don't have very many lines, and it's like it's Van Helsing and freaking Alfred or whatever that are the, you know, kind of the leading actors in this. And it's not that, you know, I mean, I get that it's a different time and everything, but it is kind of hard to watch because it makes it hard for me to connect to, because I'm like, I wouldn't be anybody in this. Like, I don't really feel a connection with literally anyone in this film. Like, I'm not the women. I'm not those like women in distress or whatever. And this has nothing to do also, just to kind of end the tangent, women can be vulnerable and feminine and like even submissive and still be like complete characters. You know, like, so it has nothing to do with them being like, yeah. But just to like make sure that's clear, because that's not what I'm saying. Like there's all different types of female characters and all different kinds of dynamics that are characters and complete people. And that's just not the case in this. They're just kind of there to look pretty and scream a little.
I relate to Dracula because I'm the guy who comes in and pleasures the men's wives.
And then leaves.
As they're like, oh no, it's too tall, dark, like, and handsome is coming in.
When are you gonna be
steal
back?
My wife. As far as like the xenophobia thing goes, I can definitely, I'll meet you there on that with the 30s version. Not this one, and only because they completely eliminate Transylvania.
That's
the
true.
Demeter, and like Dracula lives up the fucking street from these guys, basically.
Yeah,
like,
I was very
confused
really weird, about that.
Like change, because there's a good amount of changes here, right?
Yeah.
So that's, even though it is, the framework is the same.
Yeah.
There's a lot of differences here, where Jonathan Harker is like aware that he's a vampire and is like there to kill him, right? And he's like working alongside of Van Helsing, and Van Helsing like knows about it, and he like sent him in there. So that was definitely a massive change. The fact that, like, you know, once Van Helsing finds out about everything, and then he's got together with the main husband guy, who's played by Alfred Pennyworth from the Batman movies. He gets him to come with him to like Dracula's castle, and he's like, well, let's just, you know, we'll take the horse and carriage. So it's all like right there.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot that it was like so close.
Yeah, it's like Dracula lives up the road, which is a massive departure, because you got to remember, okay, so what Psycho did for horror back in the day, and the thing that a lot of like historians of film will talk about, is that from the genesis of horror in cinema and books, but especially in cinema, all the way up till Psycho, but this predates Psycho by a couple of years, is that all the horror was either like, a reaction to nuclear war with the craze of the monster stuff of the 50s and whatever, coming out of the nuclear waste of what we did in the war, and the threat of nuclear war at any moment and all that stuff. But also it was all like fantasy fictional things, or it was in like gothic castles like across an ocean with villains that couldn't exist.
Right. It's all like foreign.
This one brings it home, right? Even though, I mean, this is a British film, and Transylvania is in Romania, in like the Carpathian Mountains, right? So it's actually like on the same continent.
No, because England is an island.
Well, no, England, but okay, but
oh, you mean like?
I mean, I guess technically yes, Europe itself, right? But Europe isn't. Where's Romania?
I don't know. I don't know. As far as geography, I thought Romania was like Eastern European.
Yeah, it's in Europe.
Yeah, it's European.
That's the same continent.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know how many continents there are? Do you know the continents? I can
tell. Yeah, no. I guess what I thought you were saying is like the same. Like
no, but it's not in the same city or like in the same. But it's what I'm saying is you don't have to cross oceans,
right,
to get there. I mean, right? Yeah, you don't have to like go far as far as like how this story plays out, right? As to where if you're in America and something's over in Africa, or in Europe,
even if you're in America, Asia, on the West Coast, and something's on the East Coast, that's still far.
It's far, right? It feels like there's this distance, especially in old school films where travel was much more difficult than it is now. You can just jump on a plane now. It's pretty simplistic.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying it's closer to home in these stories to me, because they're not even that far. But in this, they make it even closer.
Yeah.
Dracula. It's like this movie should be called My Neighbor Dracula, right?
My Neighbor Dracula.
That would work.
Dracula.
So, is this my neighbor Dracula? Yeah. I got that in my head. Dracula. Yeah. Okay. So the movie starts out with like this super intense music, because these movies always gotta like really hit those like
the orchestral
highs and just like really hammer it home. But yeah, I like that. I mean, I don't prefer it to like synth.
Oh sure, yeah, definitely,
style.
Yeah.
That's way more my style of horror music.
Yeah,
the orchestral stuff feels like it could also, I don't know. It when I hear the orchestral stuff like this, I immediately know that it's like old.
Yeah, it is dated. I mean, I think the same thing kind of can be said of like 80s synth, but then you have things like, I mean, yeah, but just to be fair, right? Like, because there's probably people who grew up on these films that are like, oh my God, these like do it so much more for me. But I do think of like old Hollywood when there's an orchestra like soundtrack, it makes me think of old Hollywood, like for sure. And it's emotional for, like there's no denying that. But I'm with you. I prefer like synthy 80s sounds, because I think that they can be more like visceral and like creepy sounding. I think that the synth has a way of being like I'm thinking of like It Follows, even though that's not 80s, but it's like that, soundtrack is very reminiscent of 80s, but it's creepy.
Yeah.
And anyway, yeah.
I do want to say something though. We aren't going to do this every one of these movies. Okay, I'm not going to just harp on the time and all of that stuff.
No,
this is just for this movie.
Yeah.
And then the next ones we'll just be talking about the films as they are. But I wanted to discuss the state of horror at this time and my liking towards it, and why it doesn't resonate with me as much.
Yeah, I think it's important for context. I think anytime you go back and like watch older films with a modern lens, like you can't put yourself in that time frame, even though you might try, but it's like you can't. Like you weren't alive then, you weren't watching them when you weren't in the like in the
Well,
culture.
it's like you said, like in theaters, people were probably like, "Oh my god," scared.
Yeah.
Which is just wild to me to even think about. There's nothing scary about these movies to me, like in the slightest.
I mean, I do like I said, I like the way that Dracula looks. Like his eyes are pretty freaky, but he just isn't used enough. Like he's so sparingly used, which I think is obviously intentional, but I just
he only utters like 12 lines or something like that.
He says like nothing.
After about the 20-minute mark, he literally never speaks again in the entire film.
Yeah.
Which I think what's supposed to be conveyed there is that, at first he's introduced as this pleasant, um, you know, host, and for Jonathan Harker, and it's supposed to catch you off guard. But then once he's presented as a monster, then he's just a monster.
But that's why I like the 90s Dracula, right? Like he's a character. Yeah. And part of the appeal of Dracula and vampires in general is that they can be, at least this is one version of it. There's definitely other versions where we've watched where it's like they're purely monsters, but for a lot of people,
Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Right. But even then, right, it's like the appeal is that they can be so charming and manipulative and charismatic, and that's like what draws people into them because they are a predator, but like that's their trick of like getting people to come to them. This is why also I think it's just called Dracula, but the Netflix show, I think we tried to watch it. I was so into that and I loved that version of Dracula. There's some really cool stuff that they do with it, and it's definitely been done in other things too. But I'm a big fan of seeing Dracula without blood when he's like starving and looks awful, and him transforming into the like, tall, dark, and handsome whatever guy.
Yeah.
Which like the Last Voyage of the Demeter, like you can assume that like that's him starving, and then like when he gets to England,
but he feeds like on multiple people.
Yeah, he might just be a monster the whole time. But yeah.
But the blood in this is that paint blood red.
I love that. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I always like the paint red. It's stylistic, like it reminds me of Italian films and stuff. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't mind it. And plus, at least you get it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like the Universal stuff, you're not going to see blood.
No, and I'm sure, like, again, with people in theaters seeing this, like, it probably is shocking to see, like, Technicolor, like, blood.
Yeah, it's red.
And you're like, super, oh my God.
Super bright red, because even in Psycho, which is 2 years after this, they optioned to do it
black
in black and white for not only money purposes, but also because they didn't think they would get it passed through the ratings board with, like, red blood. Right, so we all know it's like Hershey's syrup in the movie, but regardless, like they didn't think that they could get away with showing red blood. But this movie came out 2 years earlier, shows a decent amount of red blood.
Yeah, but that scene too, I feel like Psycho is more like it's violent. Visceral. Yeah, it would be really cool to see a colorized version of Psycho. That would be the weird thing to see. I would watch it. I would totally watch it.
Sure.
Like I love the black and white, of course, but I mean, like, and obviously the sequels. Oh yeah.
So that scene is in color.
No, but I want the original.
Vince Vaughn and Anne Heche.
No, I do not.
Did you even see that scene? Because we started watching.
No, we didn't. We didn't get to that scene because you were just kind of showing me how it was literally shot for shot.
Yeah.
And
you see your butthole in that one. No, you don't.
That's not shot for shot.
A little butthole flare. But yeah, as far as his eyes go in this, I guess Christopher Lee was complaining on set all the time because the context made him like completely blind, and he was like missing his freaking marks. And they were hurting his eyes like crazy. This is a pretty common thing from old school horror, with the contacts that they put in over the whole eye, and they're like, they screw people's eyes up. There's even people who've had like permanent damage done from these things.
It reminds me of with Evil Dead, the contacts that they used in those, like they were told by an optometrist, like you can only wear these for like 20 minutes or something at a time, but they like consistently would leave them in for hours because it was so difficult to like, you know, remove them with their makeup and everything. So yeah, that stuff is people do a lot of painful things for the sake of art.
So when Jonathan Harker goes down, Jonathan Harker is a moron. I just want everyone to understand this. Jonathan Harker, I'm glad you're dead. You're an idiot and you deserve everything you got. So Jonathan Harker goes down into the crypt and sees Dracula, the main target, the vampire that will break the curse for everybody. We see it at the end of the movie. That girl's curse gets lifted off of her when her assailant is you know, disposed of. And he has him dead to rights, completely asleep, just open, willing, give it to me. And who does he start with? He starts with the wife, who screams out, and then he sits there and he's like for like an hour after he stabs her.
I don't understand.
And then when he turns around and he's like shocked that Dracula's not there.
Like, why wouldn't you go for Dracula first?
Yes.
There's no reason.
It actually like pissed me off to a point where I was like actually angry.
They should have shot it so that he didn't see Dracula there. Like that he wasn't aware that he was in there, so he kills the bride instead.
What would have been cool is, see, if I was writing, it's always if I was writing. They gotta hire me for these things. I'm telling you. No, I'm telling you.
Time travel.
So what you do is you have like Dracula's bride. So you have Dracula's coffin, which is like locked, right? And the key to Dracula's thing is held by his bride, right? And so he goes in and he wants to get at Dracula, but he can't. So he goes over to the bride and he tries to get it from her, but it's like in her hand and she's like clenching it. So he has to kill her to try to get it out. And once he like kills her, she finally turns to dust and he can get the key out. When he turns around, Dracula's coffin's already open. He didn't notice. Right? And then Dracula comes up behind him and kills him. That's fucking rad. Right? It's like, no, I do want Dracula, but I can't get at him. I have to kill this girl first to be able to get the means to get to... I'm telling you guys, I am so much smarter than these writers. They piss me off. This is literally just every single time we do this. I've done this 1,000 times on the channel at this point. These are literally things just right off the top of my head. I didn't think about this at all. I literally just came up with this on the spot right now as we started talking about it. And it is 1,000 times better than what they did. I just genuinely don't understand how no one is ever clever with these things. It's like, there's no one around you that has any talent to be like, why don't you just do this instead? It's exactly the same scene, but makes sense and is cool.
I don't know. I don't know why they don't think of things like that. I mean,
and I'm not saying that is 100% the way to go. I'm just saying for sure that's a better option. And you can take that and go, okay, that's cool. How about, okay, I get what you're saying here. How about instead, you know, we have this and that happen. That's kind of like that, but better, right? Whatever, that's fine. And then you take it and you escalate it and you reimagine it and whatever, or do something completely different. But having him kill the bride first literally makes zero sense. His whole purpose of being there is to kill Dracula. Why would you start with the chick knowing that Dracula is your main opponent and you have him dead to rights? It just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
So that kind of stuff is like, I don't care what era this was made in. People weren't morons. In fact, people were smarter back then. Look at the equivalency tests for kids in school back then versus now. Kids are morons now. Okay, people are stupid as fuck now. So the whole like argument like, well, that's how cinema was back then. Well, then they were just willfully dense because there's no excuse for this kind of writing to me.
Yeah.
When I saw the scene, I'm like, this is just, it is so beyond dumb. So anyways, I'm over it. I genuinely don't understand how they justify stupid things. And people always say, and this is what angers me. This is why I get mad. This is why I genuinely get mad, because I love the genre. And people are always so dismissive with it, saying, well, if people were smart, you wouldn't have a movie. No! That's not how it works. The writers just have to be smarter. This isn't complicated. Oh, yeah. No, because there's been so many dumbass writers for so fucking long that people go, oh, well, I guess, people just have to be dumb. But then we watch movies where people do smart things the whole time, and people are still like, oh, I just couldn't handle how stupid they were.
Oh, I know.
Really?
That's always crazy.
That one blows my mind.
Yeah.
It would be like someone watching that movie Nowhere that just came out, and they're like, oh my God, every decision, I couldn't even watch it. The girl made so many dumb decisions. The girl literally makes zero dumb decisions.
Yeah, zero.
So, like, you can write characters smart.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right? No one will save you. The one on Hulu. That girl does everything right. Yes. That girl does everything intelligent.
Yeah.
But it's just her villain is just more crafty.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I don't know. I'm very protective over the genre. And there's so many dismissive people to it over the years that are just, and even horror fans who are just like, well, I mean, horror is just dumb.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. And there's plenty of movies I love that have dumbass character decisions. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But just using that as an excuse, as just a blanket statement for the whole genre, well, there's no movie if people are smart. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I've seen hundreds of horror movies where the characters are brilliant.
Yeah.
And they still, in fact, the smarter they are, the worse the situation seems to get for them.
Oh, sure.
Because the writers have to make the antagonist even smarter.
Yeah.
Which puts them even deeper.
Yeah.
Right? So the dumber characters actually get off lighter, because then they just kind of run right into the blade. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, that's not really much. You just got a machete to the head.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get into like these really deep, dark situations, you like are, getting closer and closer to hell.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right, we want to talk about a fucking tangent.
A tangent, yeah.
I get very annoyed. Sorry.
No. It's okay.
When he stakes that chick, she turns old. Do you think? Well, no, I guess that wouldn't work. I was gonna say when he falls into the sun, he turns to dust. I was thinking because Dracula is so old, he should be dust by this point. I feel like if he was staked, he should still turn to dust.
Yeah.
Because if you become the age that you were supposed to be, Dracula being 600 years old or whatever they said in this movie, his bones and everything would basically be almost dust by this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. He should be if he's staked.
I don't know. How long does it take for bones to turn to dust? I would say probably just still would be bones. Because the catacombs are like all bones.
Yeah. How old are the catacombs?
I don't know.
Are they 600 years old?
They're not 600 years old, I don't think.
Why did I think the catacombs are from like the 1600s?
I thought so too. So we both thought that, but we're both probably wrong. We're both idiots. Okay, and I'm writing smarter things than these people, and I'm an idiot. So
let's see.
That shows you.
How old are the...
When he gets killed and he turns to dust, those effects there, especially his hand like coming up, is gnarly.
18th century. 1809.
But the history of the Paris catacombs, but that's not the bones.
How old are the bodies?
Yeah.
Cemeteries began to be emptied in 1786. Yeah. So 1800s.
From bodies numerous. Oh, I thought 6 to 7 million years ago is what I thought that said. I was like,
no, 6 to 7 million bodies in the catacombs is insane.
I know, it's crazy.
Like, I can't even fathom that.
So they're like,
how long does it take bones to turn to dust? After skeletonization, 20 years to completely dissolve.
But that's just like the skin, right? Because it takes
hundreds of years. If a body is buried in a coffin very deep in the ground, it could take 50 years for all of the tissue to decompose, and hundreds of years for the bones to fully decay.
So hundreds. Yeah, 600 years is probably enough for him to turn to dust. Then it just depends on, but if he was out in the open like he is, right? Because there's like mummification and there's practices where you can keep the body. I mean, we literally just saw that girl that was frozen in ice.
500 years, right?
That's 500 years old. Crazy. And she looks brand new. She looks like she died yesterday.
It was crazy.
When they defrosted her.
So wild.
That was super crazy. She actually looked like the kid from Terrified.
Yeah.
What she looked like.
I know.
Yeah, which is why we know they used
yes. Yes.
When Van Helsing stakes Lucy, he stakes her under the tits.
Mm-hmm. It's like here.
Yeah.
Like the heart.
He stakes her like here, like under the tit. That is not where your heart is.
I feel like he did it more in the middle. What? I feel like he staked her like in the middle of her chest.
And you see her tit under the thing, but regardless, even in here, this ain't where your heart is.
No, it's not.
So you like with chicks, you gotta stake them above the boob.
Yeah.
Right. It's like on top of the breast is where your heart is.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know what that is.
Van Helsing doesn't even know where the breasts are. Or the breasts, the heart. He knows where the breasts are. That's all he cares about.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to damage the breasts.
He's using a hammer.
The stake?
Yeah. I love when Alfred, that's what I'm calling him, he pulls out, like, they can't get this guy to give up information. I don't know what money looked like back then. I'm assuming it looked like this, I guess. I don't know, but it straight up looked
British
like Monopoly
pounds.
money.
Oh my God, we were like, no, yeah, you said Monopoly money right when he pulled it out. It totally does. It's money. Fake money. Yeah. Is that what British pounds look like? And what was it, pounds in the 50s?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know because they moved over to the euros. I don't.
Oh, it's not pounds anymore. That's right. What?
I think I don't
know.
Is
it pounds?
I don't know how that works.
Do we have any viewers from England?
I don't know. It's funny. There's these things that I learn, and then they kind of get all jumbled up in my brain, and I think like, because I sort of learn things, and I put it aside in my brain, and then I question the shit out of myself, and then when I look it up, it's like I'm half right.
Yeah.
All the time. But there's always like context missing. And it's like, God damn it. Why can't I ever just have the full story and actually sound smart?
Yeah.
Because I'm not.
Because
I'm not. I can sound smart, but yeah.
He's smart.
The mortician guy they go to that thinks death is just hilarious.
Oh my God, he's like, an old man fell down these steps trying to come visit somebody, and then he stayed forever. So, like, I feel bad because I feel like morticians and like everything we watch are always like depicted as like total weirdos.
Yeah.
They're like always eating.
Yeah.
That's like the big thing. They're always like eating over bodies and stuff.
Yeah.
Or they're like this guy who's just like so desensitized that he's like, it's literally the funniest thing ever. Which, I mean, I guess, yeah, maybe you would be desensitized, but I'm like, come on.
I talked to someone who was a subscriber for the channel who was getting their certification or whatever the hell to be like to work at like a funeral home, to be a funeral home director. And, we talked for a decent amount of time, and they were like legitimately one of the most like screwed up people like in the head that I've ever spoken to.
That's weird.
So
I mean, it's like
I'm not saying they all are like that. I'm sure they're not.
No.
But my experience was one not good.
Yeah, I definitely don't think everybody who works with like dead people are crazy, because I think it's like it's one of those jobs that is a necessity for like modern society, and I do think that there's like a reverence and respect that's needed for those people working with the dead, because it's like, come on, like, you know. That's why in that one, Guillermo del Toro, the Cabinet of Curiosities, with the mortician. That was pronounced the G. I know. Guillermo. I know. But that episode was really great because he was very like cool with the dead people.
I love how not dead bodies are in these movies.
Yeah.
And in like older movies,
they
still do it to a degree these days, but I feel like they've gotten so much better at dead bodies. But like people playing dead in movies, they're like,
I know.
I'm like, you couldn't hold still for 3 seconds.
They're like blinking and then
their chest is always like. I'm like, bro, I don't even breathe that much when I'm normally breathing. You're just trying to hold your breath and lay still for fucking 5 seconds.
When you close your eyes, to be fair,
they flutter a little.
No, like you don't really feel like when you're looking around.
But people who are filming you can be like, stop moving your eyes.
I know. Yeah.
Just like let them rest for a while until they fall asleep.
And then they wake up and they're like, ah!
And then you just start filming them while they're sleeping. Although while you're sleeping, you're like,
yeah, 100. And your eyes, because then your eyes move even more because you're dreaming.
Here, let me see. Now I'm too.
No, let me see.
Now I'm too in it.
Let me see.
No, now I'm too in it. Now I have too much energy in my body. But like, if you just now I'm laughing, so it's hard. I'm telling you, I will do it. I can't. Okay, I'll try right now. But now I'm laughing. I can't stop my mom. So I just feel like holding you. It is funny how when you like get in your head about something.
Yeah.
Remember when you used to be in class and like something would happen, or it wouldn't even have to be class, but I didn't really go to church or any of those kinds of places. But like when you're places where you're like you had to be quiet.
Yeah.
And like the teacher would like be like, if I hear anything out of you for the rest of the day, you're out of here.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like,
yeah, it'd be so
all of a
hard.
sudden, it's the most impossible thing ever. Once you get in your head about something, you're just like, I can't stop.
Yeah.
I'm laughing.
Yes.
But okay, you just kind of lay back.
You just lay back.
Just lay back and you just don't take a fucking breath. And it's literally okay. I could understand if it's a scene where the person's laying there in like in the foreground,
like 15 minutes,
like as they're having dialogue and conversation around them,
right?
But to just kind of,
your eyes were literally fluttering.
I felt it. I did feel it.
Did you?
I did feel it.
They were like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you have to calm. I need to lay down and relax for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, okay, because it's just an overhead shot for a few seconds. You have the ability to edit. This is a neat trick.
Mm-hmm.
So you take a person and you lay them down and you just like do some like meditation and you just straight up like relax as much as you can. And you film them while they're relaxing. And then you take the like, although I guess, I don't know, back then, film stock was super expensive.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So they're like, this is the shit we got, man. We did like 10 seconds. This is the best 3 seconds we got.
Yeah.
So I could buy that.
Yeah.
I could buy that. That's tough. You know, somebody needs to, but you just drug them.
Just drug them like they did Dorothy.
Just stop their fucking heart, flatliner style, and then once you got the shot you need, you bring them back.
Oh my god, bro!
You got to commit to that role.
Yeah,
I can do it.
I know you can.
We're gonna lay down.
Practice later.
We're gonna practice.
Okay.
We're gonna get in bed.
We'll film it
together, and we're gonna practice.
We get in bed together.
About fluttering, fluttering eyes. You gotta lay as still as you can, no matter what I do to you.
What?
You gotta just be dead.
Ew.
Like not till I'm not into that at all. We're gonna go practice. All right, guys. What do you think of the Hammer horror films? Did we talk about this movie at all?
Yeah. Did we?
We tried.
We tried.
We talked about it whole goddamn time. Literally, our entire conversations were around.
We had a few tangents, but they were all inspired by the film.
Okay.
So, okay. They're fluttering.
I'm fluttering because I'm like.
Here, let me do it. Let me do it. Ready?
Oh my god, so bad?
Really?
They're like.
That's what yours look like.
I know.
Oh my god.
I think it's like you need a minute.
It's harder than we thought.
No, it isn't.
Maybe
gonna
it's
prove
impossible. Maybe those actors are
They're doing better than we
amazing.
think.
All right.
We're gonna go try. I'm gonna do it. We're gonna go in the bedroom right now. Not sex, maybe sex, but not sex. And you're gonna sing. I'm gonna blow her away. She's gonna blow me away. All right, guys.